We've all seen those, haven't we? Those moments when the church's efforts to supposedly spread the good news is eclipsed by our bad news. Some terrible headline about something that's gone wrong in a church easily dwarfs things that it might have going for it that are good. And on top of that, you surely know someone somewhere who can tell a story about how they used to be in a church, but something happened to hurt them or their family. Someone was mean to them in a church, and so they don't go anymore. There's so many things out there that have painted the church in a negative light, and it can be hard to see any hope that it'll ever be a source of good news ever again. But over the next few weeks, we've accepted the challenge to look for those ways that might be there available to us, to how we can, in fact, make sure that the church is a source of good news as we're supposed to be for those around us. Today is the first day of Epiphany, Epiphany Sunday, which is the first Sunday after Epiphany. That's the third season of the church. You know, your first season is Advent, which means beginning. That lasts till Christmas, and then you have Christmas, which is actually a season. Anyone know how many days are in the season of Christmas? 12. That's why you have the song, 12 Days of Christmas. So then you have Epiphany, which was this week, and so today is Epiphany Sunday, and we are reminded of the time that the we're not sure how many there were, but usually we paint them in art as three wise men came because God had revealed to them by showing them something in the stars, connecting those dots to help them understand that the new king of the Jews had been born, and it was their job to go and pay a visit. They probably could have sent something by messenger. They could have, done any number of things to acknowledge this, but it was revealed to them that the best thing for them to do would be to go there and actually visit this new king of the Jews. You may have heard the story, right, of the wise men. The first one comes and brings Jesus a gift of gold, which is a gift fit for a king. The next one brings a gift of incense, which is a gift fit for a priest. And the third one then says, "Wait, there's myrrh." I want to thank Anthony Dewey, who gave me that joke. I'm not sure if he's here. He's afraid I was going to use it, so I blame him. But this idea, right, that actually physically connecting with Jesus, actually traveling there, it would not have been an easy thing to travel from where they were from to where they were going with these expensive gifts through the wilderness, which is the space in between the walled cities where wild animals and lawless people roamed looking for someone to rob. But they chose to go and risk it and connect in person with Jesus. The lesson here that we see in them connecting with Jesus in person is one that really runs through Jesus' entire life. You will see over and over again that he is about personal connections. He goes from personal connection to personal connection to personal connection, and those are the things that are most meaningful, showing us really that he is God's vessel to connect with us. I want to invite you to look at one of those particular moments of connection with me. It comes from Luke 19, starting in verse 1. You may have heard the story of Zacchaeus before, but if not, here it is. It begins with this. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, He has gone to be the guest of a sinner. Now, I know that it says he came down at once. And, Luke wasn't there, so it's not recorded, but I have to believe that in between Jesus saying he's going to stay at Zacchaeus' house and the muttering, there had to be an awkward moment of silence, right? Here's this crowd of people that all believe that they would be a better person to go and stay with than this guy. This is a tax collector. This is not only a tax collector. He is an agent of the nation that is oppressing them, that is claiming to own the promised land promised to the people of Israel. Like, this guy is just the worst. All of them know they're better than him. And for all the people, Jesus to walk along and spot this guy and say, I'm going to hang out at your house today. There had to have been a, wait, what? What did he say? Who? They would have been stunned at the thought that this potential Messiah candidate was going to hang out with this guy. Now, on the other hand, it could be that his dismount was pretty quick, because as soon as it finishes saying that he came down at once and welcomed him, verse 8 says, Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, so maybe he got down out of the tree, missed the landing, fell, had to get up, and then tell the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. What? Okay, not only is he the worst person here, but the one thing the Jews had going for them, right, was that they were children of Abraham and everybody else wasn't. They were the ones who were the insiders, who had that heritage, who could lean on that for their self-worth and their sense of belonging in this land. And now you're saying that he is a what? This guy is a child of Abraham. Are you kidding me? And frankly, Jesus, while we're on the subject, who was your publicist? If you're expecting us to all support you as the Messiah, what are you doing hanging out with this guy? There are important people to see. There are places to go and be seen. You want to be seen at this guy's house? This is like a politician running for office in the Ukraine, posing for a picture with Vladimir Putin. This is not going to help your stats. What are you doing? Well, he seems to know that's what they were thinking, because he goes on and tells the parable of the 10 minas. Verse 11 says, while they were listening to this, he went on to tell them a parable, because he was near Jerusalem and the people thought the kingdom of God was going to appear at once. He said, a man of noble birth went to a distant country to have himself appointed king and then to return. So he called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 minas. Put this money to work, he said, until I come back. But his subjects hated him and sent a delegation after him to say, we don't want this man to be our king. He was made king, however, and returned home. Then he sent for the servants to whom he had given the money in order to find out what they had gained with it. The first one came and said, sir, your mina has earned 10 more. Well done, my good servant, his master replied. Because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities. The second came and said, sir, your mina has earned 5 more. The master answered, you take charge of 5 cities. Then another servant came and said, sir, here is your mina. I have kept it laid away in a piece of cloth. I was afraid of you because you are a hard man. You take out what you did not put in, and you reap what you did not sow. His master replied, I will judge you by your own words, you wicked servant. You knew, did you, that I am a hard man, taking out what I did not put in and reaping what I did not sow? Why then didn't you put my money on deposit, so that when I came back, I could have collected it with interest? Now, a moment of confession, if you don't mind. I really wanted to stop reading this passage right here. I feel that this gets the job done, right? You have this person, obviously represents Jesus, who is entrusting people with gifts they are to use to make a difference in the world. And he is going to go away and come back and expects that they will have used their gifts in a way that bears fruit, that makes a difference, that accomplishes his work in the world. And so when they don't do that, or when some of them do, and then the one does not do that, and instead hoards and hides the money, then he is displeased with him for not using what was entrusted to him to make a difference in the way he was called. I feel like that'll preach. But the parable doesn't finish there. So I feel like it's my responsibility to finish the parable. Now, remember that Jesus told parables because he used examples from their lives that they would have understood to help them understand the points he was trying to make that were spiritual. So in this case, this is a situation that has happened before. In fact, it's happened lots of times before. The way that the Romans kept everybody in control was they would take the wealthy people and keep them getting wealthier, the powerful people get them more powerful, and so the people who were in charge would be invested in the status quo, so they would keep all of the peasants in line. And so it was not unusual for someone who was a wealthy person or a landowner or something like that to be summoned to meet the emperor to give them some responsibility over some area of land and make them a ruler and send them back. And it was also not uncommon for groups of people who knew that person to be terrible would go to the emperor and say, hey, please don't put this guy in charge. And now, what was also common was for the emperor to look at these two options and say, well, it does me a whole lot more good to have a steady alliance with this guy than it is to have all the peasants happy. So, sorry, no, he's going to be ruling over you. And so they would go back. And then when they all got back, it was not a secret to the ruler who those people were in the delegation who asked the emperor not to make him king. And so their lives did not get better when he got back. They all knew this is how this parable will go. They all knew this is how it would end, or else it would have been strange. So it continues in verse 24. Then he said to those standing by, take his mina away from him and give it to the one who has 10 minas. Sir, they said, he already has 10. He replied, I tell you that to everyone who has, more will be given. But as for the one who has nothing, even what they have will be taken away. But those enemies of mine who did not want me to be king over them, bring them here and kill them in front of me. And by the way, this is the word of God for the people of God. That was not convincing at all. I know it's in your heart. But that's a hard one to swallow, isn't it? I don't want Jesus, or the person representing Jesus in the parable, to demand that his opponents be brought in front of him, to have them killed in front of him. So I'd rather leave that out and not read that today. But it's in there. So we have to deal with it. And so you got to ask, well, so Jesus has this encounter with Zacchaeus, hears everyone groaning about it, and this is the parable he chooses to preach to them. So what was it that they did that was so bad that he chooses this parable of all of his options to teach them this lesson? What did they do? Bring them here and kill them in front of me. What did they do? So this servant is entrusted with something of the master's that he is supposed to use in a way that makes the difference the master wants it to make. He does not do that. Instead, he hides it, keeps it from being seen or taken or lost, hoards it, and then when the master comes back, he just gives it back to him the way that it was when he first got it from him in the first place. He hides it, holds it, and is afraid that he might get in trouble for losing it. Jesus is telling this parable to Jewish people who live in constant fear of being contaminated by the unholiness of the people around them. They believe that if they are all super holy, that God will see their holiness, will come down and will smite their enemies and give them their promised land back. And so they know that if any of them mess up, that's going to ruin it for everybody, right? So they would cast out the unclean people, right? They kept them from being in the temple and messing things up. They would follow all the rules and the laws and do the sacrifices. They were keeping close track of all of it, right? Because they could not, under any circumstances, be caught dead with an unclean person or someone that might ruin this. So let's keep them at arm's length, keep them away from us. We want no part of them, especially someone as vile and disgusting as this representative of the occupiers who take our money and remind us that someone else has come and taken the land that was promised to us. We are better than that guy, and there's no way any of us should have anything to do with that guy. And for having that reaction, Jesus tells them this parable that ends with, "Bring them here and kill them in front of me." You may grasp that Jesus is not fond of people who think that it is in their best interest to stay far away and sheltered away from people and not engage with them and not offer kindness and friendship with them and not to go and eat with them. And the thought of keeping ourselves protected and not risking it, he wants no part of that. And he makes it clear in the most abundantly clear terms. If you think about it, you could say that's kind of a challenge for us today, isn't it? And if you don't think so, I assure you that people who are not here think so. There's a book that we've been using to help inform us in some of the sermon content for this series. It's called You Lost Me by David Kinnaman. It's a book full of statistics that were gathered from interviewing and doing polling of people who are not a part of a church about people who are inside the church. And to summarize, people who are outside the church, according to this extensive survey, believe that those of us inside the church are sheltered, clumped together with people who are the same as us, rather than engaging someone who is new. On average, people who are not a part of the church think we prefer to be sheltered away from them. They think we prefer the safety and familiarity of like-mindedness of church people. They think we don't really care about what happens in this world, and that we prefer to focus on getting people into heaven when they die and forgetting about this world altogether. They think we prefer to focus on lobbying for laws against abortion and against rights for gay people. They feel judged when they go to a church on Christmas or Easter or for a wedding or a funeral. They feel judged because they believe in evolution, and they can't understand why black South Africans can forgive white South Africans for apartheid, yet God can't forgive them for their sins unless they go to church, believe in seven-day creation, and stop being friends with gay people. They believe we think they're sinners, and they believe we think they're going to hell when they die. And that's what people outside the church think of us. On average, they admire Jesus, but they don't know any other way to gain access to him without becoming all of the things they think we are and believing all the things they think we believe. Now, if you read that and are anything like me, you want to talk to that person. Explain to them, that's not right. We're nice. We would be glad to be a friend of yours, and we would be kind to you, and but we can't do that because there is this separation. There is this gulf between people who do not go to church and think this of us, and us who naturally gravitate towards people who are similar to us. That's invariably true, that differences between people naturally create distance. Differences between people naturally create distance. And unless you actively fight against that, you will become farther and farther away from people who are different than you. That is sociological fact. That's just how it works. I'll give you an example. There was a study done not long ago where single young adults were shown pictures of people of the opposite sex and were asked to rank them in order of attractiveness. What they didn't know is that the people giving them the survey took a picture of them, digitally altered it to make it look like they were a member of the opposite sex, and included that picture in the group. Of all the people who ranked these things, 70% of them chose themselves. And they swept themselves right off their feet. Love at first sight. There is something about us being different from someone else draws us apart from them. Being similar to someone draws us together. And that is not an excuse. That is just a fact of life. That is one that this parable and the story of Zacchaeus are used by Jesus to show us that it is not okay to allow that to rule us. Second thing is that whenever there are rules, but an absence of a relationship, there is invariably going to be rejection and rebellion. When there are rules in the absence of a relationship, there is invariably going to be rejection and rebellion. So the person outside the church that sees us as a big old pile of laws and rules that are going to just, give us the authority to judge them and look down at them for not being as holy as us, and they don't have any connection to us, don't have a relationship with us, the natural result of that is for them to feel a sense of rebellion and rejection. That is the natural thing. Whether you are King George trying to get a handle on the colonies in America, or you are a parent getting a kid to eat vegetables, if there are rules and there is not a relationship there, there will be rebellion and rejection. Friends, that is what we have. The separation between the church and those outside of it so often is a victim of the fact that differences breed distance and that rules without relationships result in rejection and rebellion. Friends, I am convinced that this year is an important year in the life of our church. I believe God is calling us to something very specific this year. You have probably been in situations where you were a part of a congregation or you were searching for a church where you got to shop around, right? And you got to look for a church that had the kind of pews you like to sit in, that have singers who sing in a key you can hit, the sermons that you like and make you feel good about yourself, people that are nice, youth ministry, children's ministry that your kids like. You can look for a whole menu of church goods and services you prefer to consume over some other place, right? And you had the option to go looking around for that. And you would measure the church by how much you liked the goods and services it provided for you. And there are days, friends, I would love to offer that to you, but I do not feel called to that this year. You may have seen Ashley post on our social media accounts during the week the question, what word do you feel God's calling you to use to describe 2023? Is there a sense of where God's calling you to go, what God's calling you to do, the difference you're called to make? What is your supposed to look like? And I feel like a word came to me. Now, I didn't like it because it made me nervous. And I gave the Lord some time to pick a different word. In fact, I called Tom and some others. Tom back there, Tom serves you and the Lord with faithfulness and excellence at every turn. And so I called Tom into my office to ask him to talk me out of this. And friends, I have had people try to talk me out of things before. I have never had someone fail so spectacularly as Tom did, talking me out of this word. So, thanks for nothing, Tom. And yeah. By the way, it's his birthday today, so make sure to say hello to Tom and wish him happy birthday. 24, 25, right? So I have this word, and the Lord would not let me get rid of it, and so here it is. The word is revival. The word is revival. That's a scary word. Because revival is a thing that God does. It's a thing that people agree to participate in, agree to put some chairs out for, maybe get a tent, maybe, provide some snacks. But revivals are things that God does. It's become clear to me that as God has done the work of setting us on the course that we're on, right? As being a United Methodist church as opposed to a fundamentalist church, as being what we have been for the last couple of years now, and what other churches are feeling called to be, and not to say that that's bad or we're better or anything like that, but we are clearly called to not tolerate this. We're called to not tolerate this whole idea of saying that there's those people out there that are not us, and we need to keep our distance from them and stay away from them and not let them influence us or bother us or tarnish us or infect us. Because you heard what Jesus said. People who think like that, will bring them here and kill them in front of me. Is it okay for us to think that anymore? Is it okay for us to think that it's okay for us to allow that to linger anymore? To let people continue to think what they do? To let this distance between us and those outside the church linger anymore? It is not okay, friends. It's not okay, and the entire church around the world has got to make that shift. It is time for us to make that shift and realize that it is time for us to be revived and reclaim what we were supposed to be in the beginning. A community of people that huddled together to do life together, to serve one another together, to love God, to love our neighbor, and to make the kingdom of God come on earth as it is in heaven. It is time for us to be different than we have been. And it's not up to us to blame someone out there. It's their fault, their fault, their fault. What we can control is what happens in here. And we can be different. I'm going to give you an example every week for the next couple of weeks, but I want to give you this one today. The word saved is a word that has a lot of baggage in churches these days. Someone asks you, when were you saved? What they probably mean is, at what point did you pray your prayer and accept Jesus as your Savior so that you go to heaven when you die? That's what they probably mean, right? That isn't what it meant in the Bible, but that's what we mean today when we say the word saved. But see, here's the thing. Maybe you would say, in answer to that question, it was at a conference in 1998 when I was saved. If you said that, you would be wrong, because that is not when you were saved. You were saved by Jesus in 33 AD, not because of something that you said or something that you prayed or something that you thought, but because of what he did. He didn't die on the cross and say, all right, ball's in your court. What did he say? It is finished. He said, it is finished. So when we talk about people being saved, we talk about people coming to Christ, when we baptize someone, I don't want to invite them to Christ because they need to get their life jacket on for eternity when they die. I want them to come accept Christ because they're already saved. Jesus has already done the work to bring them to him, and he's not talking about separation from him and someone he doesn't know. He's talking about his desperate desire to be in connection with people that he's already saved. They are already his. And how dare we do anything, anywhere, anytime to stand between him and the people that he has died for? Shame on us if we ever cause that. And it is not okay for us to ever do it again. So this year is about revival. We're going to revive the church. And yeah, who are we? We're 200 people at a church in Clearwater, Florida, and the whole church has to change. And if we're supposed to go first, friends, God's asked me to do weird things all my entire life, and here we go again, but I don't know. This is the word. Tom wouldn't let me get rid of it, and so this is the word. But it's things like this. It's things like this that we've said over the years that have separated us from other people and made them afraid of us. You know, there was some of this polling. They asked people whether you would want to have a born-again Christian living next door to you. 3/4 of the people said no. 3/4. And that included people that go to church. We cannot sit here and say the way it is okay anymore. So that is finished. It is a new day. And we're going to be a part of reviving the church in whatever form that looks like, as God does that with us, through us, however. But it is time for a new day. And we're going to become a church that makes sure that everyone, everywhere, is saved by God because of what Jesus did, not because of what they did, or because of how compelling our invitation was for them to come here. It's not because they had the right beliefs, the right this, that, or the other thing. It's because of Jesus that they are saved. And they get now to come and enjoy that friendship and enjoy that relationship and enjoy the love of Christ, who then brings them in and equips them to go out and do the saving work in this world, which means that we are being saved from sin and its effects that are going to ruin the world if we do not go out there and spread the gospel, which is the good news that keeps getting drowned out by the bad news. The bad news has got to stop so that the good news can be a part of the salvation of this world, not waiting for us to all die and go someplace else, but this world, because Jesus said to the thief on the cross that today you'll be with me in paradise. The same word that described the Garden of Eden in the Greek Bible. Jesus knew what that word was. He knew that it was the way it was supposed to in the beginning, and we're going to fix it now and make it the way it's supposed to be in the end, right here, right now, and that we're all going to live together with me right here. And it's our chance to be a part of making that happen right here. I may have gone long. But friends, I believe that God is at work. God is changing things. God is making things happen to bring a new generation of Christians to lead the church into the future. You saw Ryan up here. You've seen our other interns. You saw Betsy last week do an extraordinary job. You've seen it. It's happening. There are young people who God is raising up to be a part of this church's ministry, and they came this way. We didn't make them the way as good as they are. God brought them to us, and there are things happening, and I'm excited about the future. And I'm excited to live that future with you. Apparently, God's plan for us is revival. So I invite you to pray about that and be ready, because it might be coming. It might be coming here. Let's pray together.